Hello everyone, my name is Parker Morrow. I am actually an economics undergraduate student from the small state university, Cal State University San Bernardino. Without traffic, it's an hour east, but with traffic, it's about an hour and a half. So yeah, welcome to California. And I will be presenting my research on characterizing state-level policies of delta-8 THC and associations with marijuana legalization. So as what Dr. Harlow explained, delta-8 THC is an intoxicant cannabinoid derived from hemp with similar effects as marijuana. And the 2018 Farm Bill legalized hemp, which led to delta-8 THC and other hemp-derived THC products being sold across the United States. I have an example of an edible, but also we saw the raw combustible flower, the tinctures, the vapes, a whole wide variety of products. Therefore, delta-8 THC is unregulated at the federal level, which may lead to an increase in public health risk because of the legislature about it. So in lieu of federal regulations, states have started to implement their own types of policies on how delta-8 is seen in their own state. But there was also substantial variation in types of restrictiveness of regulations, and we will get further into detail of that. So for our research objective, we wanted to identify and characterize state-level policies for delta-8 THC and examine associations with with marijuana legalization policies. So for our methods, we conducted an online search of delta-8 THC from June to August of 2023. This consisted of official government memos, websites, and gray literature sources like CBD websites that could be selling the THC product or any sort of CBD product. So go by state to figure out what the legislation was, put it in our database, and keep track so we know from further on. We then, as we got all the delta-8 THC categories, we put them into 3 categories. It was either banned, where delta-8 THC is prohibited, regulated, where delta-8 THC is restricted, and then not regulated, where no delta-8 THC legislation is in place, or they're abiding by the 2018 Farm Bill. We then went through and found each state's marijuana legalization. So it was either legal versus illegal. There was medicinal only, but we decided to put it in the illegal only. We then used descriptive statistics to examine the distribution of delta-8 THC policies. And then we also calculated risk ratios for association of marijuana legalization with any delta-8 THC policy. So this could have been the banned or regulated versus the not regulated for delta-8 THC policy. So what are the current regulations of delta-8 THC on a statewide level? We have a map here of all the states and how they abide with the regulations. So we have a total of 24 states where it's not regulated or abiding by the 2018 Farm Bill. This is a lot of the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, some of the Northeast, but also across the Sun Belt. You'll also note, too, that Washington, D.C., the federal level, is also unregulated. We then have the regulated states, which is the green states, close to California, Minnesota, down to Florida, more of a randomized control and randomized scenario of what we see for regulated. But then we also have the banned states, a total of 18 states for it. So this was, a lot of the Pacific Northwest, some of the Sun Belt, but then we see New York, Vermont, and also West Virginia in there too. And this is really, what our focus is what types of delta-8 THC policies are there and how are they being implemented? So first off, we have the minimum age, like what Dr. Harlow said. It was the 18 plus or 21 plus to purchase, which is a total of 8 states. We have the packaging labeling, potency caps, I'm sorry. Potency caps, so the maximal allowable milligrams of THC per serving with a total of 6 states. We also have the packaging and labeling, so this could have been used like a warning products, dose instructions, or even some sort of packaging that they want to implement on it with a total of 5 states. Testing and production, which is really important. Another independent laboratory would take the delta-8 product, test for any, if it passes inspection, then it could be sold. That was a total of 5 states. One that I find important is a retail license and or registration. So the retailer that does sell delta-8 THC must be, have a permit with the state to sell the delta-8 product. We then have product placement. So with a total of 2 states where the product must be behind retailers at all times, behind the counter of retailers. And then we also have the product type, so the ban of inhalable delta-8 THC. And it also varied drastically between states, like for example, our state, California. We abide actually by all regulations except for the product placement. So we have, each state has their own type of regulation in place and how it differs between. On the other hand, how did states actually ban delta-8 THC? And it really only was 2 main concerns. So states either put it on the state-controlled substance list with a total of 13 states, or they banned the process of Delta 8 itself with a total of 5 states. Not many. It wasn't like the regulations. It was either it is banned on the controlled substance list or just the process itself. So this table shows the association of adult use cannabis legalization with Delta 8 THC regulations. So for this table, we have for states with adult use cannabis legalization, a total of 17 states, or 71%, did have regulations or bans on Delta 8 THC. And for states that did not have adult use cannabis legalization, a total of 37% did have regulations or bans on Delta 8 THC. So states with adult use marijuana legalization were 1.9 times more likely to have any Delta 8 THC regulation. And so that shows that, there is a wide distribution of how these regulations are put into place for Delta 8, and it, differs on how we see it. And our findings show a very diverse landscape of Delta 8 THC regulations across the United States. As we saw, the most common policies were potency caps and minimum age laws, but as we go on further, there may be new policies that come into play. And this next bullet point is very important to me. There was a meaningful relationship between states' marijuana legal status and its approach to regulating Delta 8 THC. So there could have been an infrastructure already established for cannabis legalization for the state. There could have been, some states with their beliefs of cannabis, when a new product like Delta 8 comes into play, they already have the algorithmic structure to go through and say, okay, we have a new product on the market, let's put through the regulation and just instantly pull it off, or ban it or put the regulation on it. But it also is a reflection of social political differences across the United States. Different states have different beliefs on what we see about cannabis and Delta 8 products. So it could have been, states in the Midwest or along that lines just have different beliefs on, Delta 8 products or cannabis in general. But Delta 8 policies continue to evolve. Our study was from June to August of 2023, so that was last year. But this current year, policies have been changing. We know more about Delta 8 THC. So more research is needed on which policies are effective for protecting people and the public health. Thank you.